Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. We're taking a look at a speech that never actually got to be given, a speech that shook colonial India and continues to spark debate even now.
That's right. Annihilation of Caste by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar.
And it really is quite the story. Picture it. 1936, India's buzzing with the fight for independence. But amidst that, there's another fight brewing, a fight for social equality.
And that's where Ambedkar comes in.
A scholar, a visionary, and let's be honest, a total badass when it came to challenging the caste system.
Absolutely. He was a voice for the marginalized, a fierce advocate for those deemed untouchable.
And this speech, well, it was meant to be his magnum opus on the topic.
Invited by a group called the Jat Pat Todak Mandal, known for their own anti-caste stance, you'd think it'd be the perfect platform.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But here's where it gets juicy. They invite him, ask him to speak his mind, and then...
Get cold feet.
Big time. They wanted him to censor it, tone it down, rip out the parts that made them squirm. Can you believe the nerve?
They were worried about unrest, backlash, you name it. Remember, this is a time when challenging the caste system was akin to lighting a powder keg.
And their letters? Oh boy, their letters to Ambedkar are something else. Under the circumstances, they write, it becomes your duty to cooperate with the Mandal. Talk about pressure.
But Ambedkar, he wasn't backing down.
Not one bit. He fires back, you will agree that I have never accepted to be limited in any way in the preparation of my address. Talk about standing your ground.
He knew the weight of his words. He wasn't about to let them be diluted.
And honestly, this whole episode, it just shows how deep-rooted the fear was.
Exactly. The fear of even talking about caste, let alone dismantling the system. It shows how entrenched it was, and to some extent still is.
And that's why Ambedkar's courage, his refusal to be silenced, is all the more remarkable. He wouldn't let them bury his ideas, and in a way, that's what makes this speech, this annihilation of caste, even more powerful. It's a testament to the enduring strength of words and ideas, even when they're suppressed. It's like trying to silence the sun, you know? You can try to cover it up, but the light, it always finds a way through.
It really does feel that way with Ambedkar's words. They resonate even louder, I'd say, because of the attempts to suppress them.
Absolutely. So he refused to be silenced. He took this speech, this annihilation of caste, and put it out there for the world to read.
And what a read it is.
Oh, it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
He doesn't hold back. He dissects the caste system, lays bare its ugliness with such precision.
Like a surgeon, you know.
Exactly. Each cut, each argument exposes the damage it inflicted on Indian society. Social, economic, political, even moral, nothing is off limits.
No sacred cows for Ambedkar.
None whatsoever. He systematically dismantles every justification, every half-hearted defense of caste that was thrown his way.
Let's take a look, shall we? One common argument was all about division of labor. You know, everyone has their place, keeps society running smoothly, that sort of thing.
The old, it's tradition, it's always been this way argument, the classic.
Timeless, really. But Ambedkar, he saw right through it. He argued this isn't about assigning job, it's about control. It's about keeping people trapped in a rigid hierarchy where social mobility is, well, practically impossible.
He even brings up the Irish Home Rule movement to illustrate his point.
Right, which, for those who don't know, was essentially Ireland's fight for political autonomy from Britain.
And he argues that their struggle, even though it was about political freedom, was deeply hampered by deep social divisions, a lot of them stemming from religious differences.
And he saw a parallel with India. He was basically saying, look, we're trying to build a nation here, but how can we possibly succeed if we're constantly divided by caste?
And it's not just a historical example. He goes even further back, talks about ancient Rome, the formation of their republic, how they had to grapple with integrating different groups, different social classes to create a stable political system.
He was a master at connecting these historical dots.
He really was. And this leads to another crucial point. He argues that caste wasn't just this social or political problem, it was strangling India's economy.
Which is interesting, right? You think economic factors would be the driving force behind social change, wouldn't you? At least that's what a lot of people believed back then.
Especially the socialist thinkers of the time. They were all about economic determinism, the idea that economic forces shape everything else.
But Ambedkar, while he understood the role of economics, he argued, hold on a minute, in India, you can't ignore the power of religion and social status.
Imagine being told, you could only be a carpenter because your father was a carpenter. It doesn't matter if you're a whiz with numbers or a gifted artist, you're stuck.
Talk about a buzzkill.
He felt that this rigid system squashed individual ambition, stifled innovation. He challenged that purely economic viewpoint, showing how social and religious forces, especially in the Indian context, were just as powerful, if not more so.
And he's not just theorizing here. He gets into the nitty-gritty, the lived reality of untouchability, and those examples, let me tell you, they're tough to stomach.
This is where the speech gets incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
He goes beyond intellectual arguments and brings in the human element.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, really. He talks about this concept of shadow pollution.
Where even the shadow of an untouchable was considered polluting, enough to contaminate someone of a higher caste.
Dehumanizing doesn't even begin to cover it.
Not at all. And it gets worse. He describes the plight of the Balay in central India, a community subjected to a list of degrading rules simply because of their caste.
What they could wear, where they could live, even how they could interact with others, it was all dictated by this system.
And these weren't abstract rules. He talks about specific cases like the Kavitha and Zanu incidents.
Untouchables punished for daring to, send their kids to school, fetch water from a well using a metal pot.
Seen as acts of defiance.
The audacity.
It highlights the absurdity of it all, right?
Yeah.
But also the brutality. And then there's the Chaturvarnya incident.
Oh, that one's tough to forget. An entire village of Hindus attacking a group of untouchables because they had the nerve to serve ghee at a dinner party. Ghee.
Clarified butter.
Talk about adding insult to injury. But that's the thing. It wasn't just an isolated incident. This was systemic, woven into the very fabric of society.
And Ambedkar uses these horrifying examples to drive home the point that this wasn't just about social etiquette or some abstract notion of purity. This was about power.
About keeping an entire segment of the population subjugated, oppressed, dehumanized.
And he goes even further to say that it corrupted everyone. That even those within the caste system, they weren't immune to its toxic effects.
That's an interesting point. So it wasn't just about the victims, it was about the perpetrators too. The system was hurting everyone in a way. Tell me more about that. It's like this poison that seeps into everything, doesn't it? Even with the best intentions, you're operating within a system that's built on inequality.
Exactly. And that's where the heart of the disagreement between Ambedkar and Gandhi lies.
Right, because we have these two titans both fighting for a more just India, yet they clash on how to tackle this beast of a caste system. It's almost Shakespearean, isn't it?
It really is. And it boils down to this reform or revolution.
Exactly. Gandhi, he saw the horrors of untouchability, of course, no doubt about that, but he still saw some value in this old idea of Varna, right?
The fourfold division of society.
Like that old analogy of the body, each Varna is like a vital organ. Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, each with their role to play.
The idea was that it wasn't supposed to be about birth. Not really. It was about inherent qualities, occupations that suited those qualities.
More about harmony, right. Everyone fulfilling their dharma, their duty, and society functioning like a well-oiled chariot.
That was the ideal, at least. Gandhi felt that this Varna system, it could be reformed, you see. Strip away the discrimination, the rigidity, base it on merit and social good.
A noble goal, no doubt. But Ambedkar, he just wasn't buying it, not one bit.
He saw it as fundamentally flawed, this idea of fitting everyone into neat boxes.
Like trying to cram an octopus into a teacup, you know? It's just not going to work.
He argued that even if you could categorize people accurately, what about their aspirations, their individual growth? It ignores the beautiful complexity of human beings.
He even brought up Plato's Republic, you know, the philosopher king and those perfectly ordered classes.
Ambedkar used it as a cautionary tale. Even the most well-intentioned attempts at creating a utopia, they can go horribly wrong when you ignore human nature, the messiness of reality.
It's like he was saying, look, this Varna system, it's a fantasy. Even in theory, it doesn't hold water. And in practice, well, it'll just end up as the same old caste system we're trying to escape.
Like a leaky pot destined to crumble.
Exactly. And then there's this whole good master argument that Gandhi put forth.
The idea being, if those in the higher castes behaved better, treated those below them with kindness and respect, then the problem would somehow solve itself.
A big simplistic, don't you think?
Ambedkar thought so too. He argued that it missed the point entirely.
Because a good master is still a master, right? The power imbalance remains.
Exactly. He even asks, can personal character make the maker of armaments a good man?
It's that classic dilemma, isn't it? Can you be morally good within a system that's inherently bad?
Ambedkar argued that you couldn't. He said, you must make your efforts to uproot caste, if not in my way, then in your way.
And that, my friends, is the million-dollar question, isn't it? What is our way? How do we, in our own lives, dismantle these systems of oppression, these hierarchies that limit human potential? That's something Ambedkar forces us to confront, even today.
His words, silenced then, resonate even louder now, challenging us to create a world where every human being has the opportunity to thrive, to reach their full potential. It's a fight that continues, and one we can't afford to ignore.
It's a powerful message for us to end on, don't you think? It's a reminder that the fight for social justice, for true equality, it's ongoing. And as we delve into these historical texts, these clashes of ideas, it's not just about understanding the past, but about shaping a better future. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep those questions coming and keep fighting the good fight.